Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is a screencast-o-matic presentation and recording for the second half of the warm-ups for cycle 1 of quarter 2. Before I get started, please let me encourage you to open up to the correct template and to write down the question and the corresponding answer as the presentation progresses. Please remember, for full credit, you need to write down the question and the answer in full, format your answers in a different color, and then remember to hit submit on Google Classroom by the deadline. Let's go and get started with the final two questions of the first cycle of the second quarter. So what is interesting to note about Africa's geography and climate, and how might this have affected its culture and development? Here are some key things that I personally think that we should remember and know in regards to Africa's geography and climate. For the lesson, we basically touched upon all these major talking points. Africa is huge in size and magnitude, and this of course works both for it and against it in terms of its development and its continuity of culture. Additionally, Africa is home to the most unique and varied geographical landforms in the world. You see, Africa, by design in many ways, has different types of geographic features ranging from mountains, deserts, rainforests, Sahel, savanna, islands, steppes, and more. To understand the story of Africa, we have to look at its geography, because in many ways its geography is the story of the coming of culture and the way that history unfolded. Climate zones have dramatically impacted development of Africa too. As previously noted here, the story of culture often reigns true with its geography and how people related to it. With stories of survival, stories of farming, trading, and success, we can look at some of the most successful civilizations of Africa and get better context to understand for how these people made it throughout all the trials and tribulations. Africa is home to a plethora of natural resources too, which has helped and hurt the continent at large. What I mean by that is that although Africa is home to many different natural resources, a key dynamic here to make them successful is what they do with those resources and seeing a return on the other country's investment, so to speak. And down here at the bottom, Africa's unique diversity is directly correlated to its geographical and climate layout. The people, the languages, the religions, the customs, and more, all these factors directly relate to the way that Africa has developed. If you remember watching the video in class about how geography doomed Africa, these are some of the talking points and features that once again work both for it and against it. Let's proceed to the next question. What are some unique but yet noteworthy facts about Africa's culture? So here we go. Let's start off with the first talking point here. So there's no such thing as a common consensus African culture. All too often, many people might stereotype in their mind what a typical African looks like. But when we think about a typical African, there's no such thing. Due to the diversity of the climate and the culture, we can better understand what Africa really is. Africa's culture is unique and diverse, mostly due in part to geography, history, and of course, the story of Africa in time. But Africa is home to thousands of different types of cultural components, from languages and even religions. And these languages, once again, show us and tell us how people communicated, and in many ways still try to make communication through cultural diffusion today. Africa is home to many unique religions, from Islam, Christianity, and Judaism being the big ones that you might have known before, but let's also not forget about the many, and I mean many, native religions of native, traditional, indigenous peoples. Africa has unique architectural styles too, based on region, as well as unique culinary desires and customs too, based on the region and overall habits maintained and developed over time. And lastly, African values are unique in and of themselves, in terms of how they view family and the family structure, in terms of how they view the coming of age and the rites of passage, and in terms of how they view smaller things like inheritance and wills. We can get a better contextualization of the African culture the more that we look at it objectively through lenses like these. Thank you very much for tuning in, and good luck with the rest of the warm-up packet assignment, and remember to hit submit.